I was talking to my dad the other week, and he was like, "Hey, I heard through the grapevine that you have a podcast." And instantly my mouth went dry. I got nervous, weirdly, butterflies in the stomach, all of that stuff. Like he caught me doing something, like that I shouldn't be doing, whether it's stealing, drinking, I don't, something where it's like, oh shit, he found out something that I was not necessarily trying to hide, but it's not like I was forthcoming and I tell him like, hey, yeah, I started a podcast, blah, blah, blah. And like this was something that I did a lot growing up, whether it was like I started dancing, started emceeing, a lot of the extracurriculars I never really told him much about. He mainly knew about basketball because he had to take me to practice and stuff like that. And then obviously academics, he had full transparency into until college, which is probably why it then went to shit. So then after college, it was just like, okay, you know what? With my mom and dad, I'm just gonna tell them what I'm up to, so they feel more inclusive, more included. In addition to that, it's like, what's the point of lying about this shit anymore? Like if I have a girlfriend, I'm gonna tell them. If I don't have a girlfriend, I'm gonna tell them. There's no need for them. Like it just doesn't matter at that point. You're damn near 22 years old. Just tell them the truth. But with the podcast thing, it was like, oh shit, like how in the heck did he find out? Did he already listen to an episode? This he's not really on Instagram or YouTube or anything like that. So is there a family member that follows me that maybe told him? And how far has this word gotten? Like, am I gonna start going to Thanksgivings and all the uncles and aunties gonna be like, oh, how's your podcast going and stuff like that? So then I asked him, I was like, oh, like how, like what grapevine did you hear this through? He said, don't worry about it. And I get it. Never reveal your source. And I was like, yeah, I'm a couple episodes in, blah, 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 this and that. And then he followed it up with the most typical answer I could probably get from my dad the most typical question I could get from my dad, which is, what is a podcast? And then as soon as he said that, I was perfectly fine. Mouth wasn't dry anymore. I wasn't nervous. And I was like, this guy's never going to hear this. But, like this last time when I was at home, I told them all about it. Showed them the YouTube page. Do I think they're going to watch it anytime soon? Hopefully not. I don't really know like what's that perception? Like I guess I'm just going to find out eventually, right? But once again, welcome back. We are on episode 4. Episode 4. Wow. My name is Ajay Patel. This is the Ajay Patel Show. And it has been at least 2 weeks since I recorded the last episode. A lot has happened. Did a little bit of traveling. Went back home recently. I went home last Wednesday lost my wording there. I went back home to celebrate Raksha Bandhan. So then I went there last Wednesday, celebrated that. And then on Friday, it was my close friend Vishwa's birthday, who you guys will probably for sure see on an episode coming up. And we went out, did this VR. There's this like new VR thing that has been very popular, popping up on my TikTok feed, probably because we mentioned it. But you basically put on this headset, and it's the same thing as like when you do the VR at home for video games, where you put on a headset, you're in this kind of world, you can walk around maybe. But in this one, it's like a free open space, right? Like just imagine you're standing on a basketball court, you put on this VR headset, and then you can physically walk around in the game to, move to the next spot, this and that. There is different modes like zombies, some space takeover stuff. We did the space takeover thing, and it was pretty cool. I will say it was pretty cool. I get pretty disgusted at like these publicly used things, like the last group just wore this, was probably sweating in these goggles and stuff. Did they clean this before I put this on? And then it it just kind of smells, like especially when that rubber gets a certain type of way. Anyways, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but basically, it was a fun time. You guys should definitely try it. There's a there's one in we went to the one in Addison. I'm sure they're all over the place at this point now. And then after that, kind of a lot more of the usual, starting go to a bar, meet everyone up, go to a restaurant, and then go out and see how long you can last, right? It's funny because I've known this dude forever, right? Since 5th grade, and seeing the birthdays evolve, right? So you start with your basic birthdays where you're doing little pool parties in the backyard. Maybe you go bowling or something. And then you get to the college era of birthdays where it's absolute ragers. Post college, maybe you do a little bit traveling. Oh, we'll do it in Florida. Oh, we'll do it in California, whatever. And now we're at the age where it's like, yo, after dinner, and we'll try to go out, but let's leave before the lights turn on, and let's just sit around and just hang out, right? It's much more casual. I know a lot of you also feel this where it's like, hey, look, I'm all for celebrating your birthday, but I cannot stay out till 2. Especially if you have stuff going on the next day, or it's just you can't even talk to people when you're out anymore. And I get it, that's not the point. You're supposed to be drinking, dancing, doing all this, but the Dallas scene is just stale to me now. Like I've lived there long enough. I lived there long enough. And there are some pockets, I understand. I mean no disrespect to all my Dallas people, but no one dances anymore. And I posted something on my story where I was like, "Oh, episode 6, why don't you folks dance anymore?" And I really do mean that. And I hope to get into this maybe in another episode again, but it's like you just look around and everyone's just sitting at their table with their bottles. Either they're crowding the bar, they're just, like you got to lean over to talk in someone's ear because the shit's so loud. If someone's dancing, you kind of just see them bobbing their head a little bit. And I don't mean like Chris Brown, like dance battling and shit, but just moving your body. I don't care how embarrassing it is. Just move around. Like it's so uncomfortable. If you're just standing there, I can't talk to you because this shit's so loud. And it's like, this is like a stiff vibe. Everything just feels stiff about this. So just loosen up, bro. You don't have to be absolutely blasted and start dancing. I understand the dancing starts ramping up probably as people start drinking more. But is everyone damn near like just super shy and shit now? I don't understand. Is it not cool to dance? Like, am I corny? I don't know. Like I obviously said in a previous episode where I'm not going to be doing all these dance routines and stuff, but I don't mean that. I just mean if you're out, bob around, have a good time, push someone. I don't know. I'm getting too damn passionate about this to wind it back a little bit. Went out, had a good time. Special happy birthday to him. And the week before that, we hung out with another group of friends in Pismo Beach. If you haven't been there, it's about 3 hours north of LA. And the group we were hanging out with is a group of friends that I mainly knew in college, and they all live in SF. So they came down from San Francisco to Pismo. So it's kind of like the midway point for both groups. And Pismo is mainly known for one, I guess, the beach, and then wineries. And I've been to a fair share of wineries, and I have always enjoyed the vibe. You're outdoors, people are dressed up, you're sipping wine, and it's just a good time. You're just hanging out with each other. You can kick it, no loud music. You can dance if you want to, but it's just chill and hope. Like, obviously you need to kind of be in the shade. It's pretty hot out there. But the thing I'm having a little bit issue with now is I think I'm getting a little bit more tired of them. Like, I don't really fully care about the wines. I just care more about the aesthetic of it all. It just feels like, oh, it's nice to be outside and hang out and get out. And, like, oh, the experience is very nice, right? Like when the person is pouring your little glass and they say, oh, you're supposed to spin it, see the legs, smell it, taste it. And then that's pretty cool. But a lot more of these places have become more hands off now, right? They'll just pour it in your cup and then they'll just say, oh, this thing is from the region of blah, blah, blah. We ferment it for this long, and this is why it's so unique. But that part's kind of boring to me. Like I get it. If you are a true wine connoisseur, sommelier in the making kind of thing, I get it why you would thoroughly enjoy this. The one thing I found kind of funny is like one of the wines that they served was like, oh, hey, yeah, like when there were all the forest fires throughout the, going through California, it left this really good aroma and we capture that and put that in the wine. And I was like, I feel like that's garbage, bro. Like, this is super smoky. It doesn't taste that great. But I guess, it's their way of making lemonade out of a shitty situation and not completely wasting a batch. But overall, I think my desire to go to these wineries and things like that have kind of just dropped a little bit. I will say I can't talk fully on Pismo Beach because I didn't go to the actual city itself. We were staying more so on Grover Beach, which is next door. Very white, very white. A lot of Trump flags and uh, Biden is a pedophilia posters out there. Um, so that part, I mean, it's uncomfortable, but it's not like anyone said anything to us. It's not like we were getting some weird looks. There were a handful of Indian people there that were not in our group. So overall, a comfortable place, not racist or anything like that. And the best part about the trip is just the group dynamic, right? Like when you go on these trips and people are just chill about everything, right? You don't feel like you have to overdo yourself. You don't have to keep up with doing the dishes, doing this, doing that. That's the part that can ruin things for sure. In this case, like we were just talking about it, and it's like the group dynamics. There's just two things that everyone should hear and try to abide by, and all of these trips will go perfectly well. And the two words I think of are chill and help. Chill is a big one because it's just like, hey, just go with the flow. Don't be, if you want to try something, just say that. And if it's not part of the group plan, then maybe you go on your own to that. But don't do too many things on your own, right? You need to have almost like a 80-20, a 90-10 balance of the stuff you're doing with the group and then maybe something you want to do on your own or with your significant other and you're going to go do that y'all selves. Chill also has to do with kind of like, hey, you know what? If the whole group isn't feeling like going out, maybe you shouldn't be too dire to go out. And maybe this rule is absolute bullshit, but it's just what I feel when I'm around people. It really helps things kind of just flow a bit better. And then the second thing is just help. If someone's looking for a restaurant to go to at night, pull out your phone and try to find some places. When it's time to clean up that Airbnb, help with the dishes, take the trash out. Don't be in bed till 10:50 and you got to check out at 11. And then just overall, if someone needs help with something, just lend a hand. Oh, you need a beer, you need a water, you need a wine. Here, I'll go get it. And then everything else just flows fine. The Airbnb we stayed at was not that great. Do we complain? I did a little bit. I made little comments, but who cares? I didn't find the place. I didn't help find the place. So, what room do I have? And I think just those two things in any group dynamic you go into, if you just chill out, go with the flow, and then just help out where help is needed, things go so smooth. I feel like I didn't even have that on the agenda to talk about, but there it is. I never really kept up with politics. It was just something I really just never got into. And I know people say that's like, oh, that's a little bit ignorant, like this person's, so important to the country. You should be knowing that your vote matters and all this stuff. But I just never really kept up with any of the debates, anything like that. Like my information did come from social media for the most part. And then just kind of like if I wanted to do a Google search on random things that I would hear about. And then also back then, I think I was watching the news much, much more. But obviously, if you're watching Fox, then they kind of steer the news one way. If you're watching, let's say, NBC, they're steering it another way, CNN, blah, blah, blah. Like it was just something I never kept up with. And then when I finally voted for the first time in 2020, COVID year. So the Trump Biden election, it was like, oh, okay, like it's not like I really knew shit, but I was leaning a certain way, went and voted. Was I disappointed? Doesn't matter, like, and so now with this upcoming election on the horizon, it's in my head to be a little bit more like, like maybe I should pay attention to this stuff. Maybe I should know how it'll impact me financially, how it may impact my family, or, like just keeping up with things in general. The thing is like, you just none of this shit ever goes to plan, right? Someone can say like, "Oh, I'm gonna do all these tax breaks. I'm gonna take care of this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do student loans, blah blah." And then, like let's say none of it ever happens. And maybe it would have happened the other way around. You just never know, right? You just kind of are rolling dice. You're gambling essentially and just hoping that things go good with whoever you vote for. And all that to say, so by the time you hear this, it'll have been probably 2 weeks since it passed, but the primary Republican, the debate that just happened, and talk of the town is Vivek Ramaswamy, who I thought, like honestly, when I saw the first video of him, and this wasn't from the debate, but when I saw the first video of him and I was like, oh wow, this Indian dude running as a Republican, like didn't expect to see that, like obviously I do think the older generation of Indians are a lot more red than people admit. I think that my generation and probably below are a lot more blue. I don't know like how. Actually, I do know how, but don't want to get too into it right now. So when I saw this Indian dude running as Republican, in my head I was like, "Oh wow, like this guy probably is gaining a lot of traction in the Indian community, whether it's old, young, doesn't matter. This guy has to be on fire right now." And then after the debate and I see these clips, I thought, "Oh shit, people are probably even more into this." This dude, I will say he did a pretty good job from what I saw of the highlights. Like you talk and you talk. I think how you win a debate is you just keep on talking for presidential elections. Obviously, a debate with friends. I'm not saying that. I'm saying a presidential election, you just keep on talking until you make the other side or all the other people on the stage with you, panel, whatever, quit talking. Like we would see Trump always just bully this dude Biden until he stopped talking. And then it's just like, damn, bro, I need you to speak up. And that is almost what I felt like he did here, right? He played on this whole like Donald Trump thing where it's like, hey, I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman entering this world. And you should vote for me because I am not bought and paid for like these other folks up on this stage. And then obviously all the other candidates are going to bicker with him, put him down, all that stuff. So that stuff is expected, right? But when I saw the public perception of people in my friend circle and a little bit extended about how much they hate this dude, I was truly shocked. And look, I haven't done that much research into him to know like basically the quarrels that everyone has with him as far as like, oh, he's a con artist. He says he came up from nothing, but he had some doctors as parents and all that stuff. I do want to look into him some more, but the thing that's in my head is just like whoever wins out of all of these people, out of all of these Republican candidates, right? When it comes down to who will actually be on the ballot for the Republican Party, I still think it's going to be Trump. Like, I get it. Oh, but he's indicted for this. We saw his mugshot and all that stuff. That fool is not getting put away for anything. He is going to bust out. And then those Trump supporters that are out there are still faithful to him no matter what. We heard shit before he won the election. We were hearing shit about him. During the presidential election, I was just like, bro, how is this guy still president? And all this stuff's out here. We were putting away everyone else that, like all the documentaries were flowing in for, whether it's Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, putting those fools away. Jeffrey Epstein. And then this dude's still president. And so I don't know how it happens, but I do think that fan base of supporters, like, I am not crazy. These dudes stormed the Capitol for this dude. They are going to remain by that dude's side till death. And even like all this Republican stuff is cute and all that, but I do think it'll come down to Trump on that Republican ticket. Now that doesn't, like answer the whole, oh, how am I trying to keep up with this more? But all in all, I'm just trying to see what's out there. On the Democratic ticket, I feel like that would be much, much more interesting. I don't know how that necessarily works because, I know the current president is a Democrat. But like, are we still in a place where we think he's fit? Like, we just saw I can't remember his name and I don't want to pause to look it up, but the older fella that damn near had a stroke on camera. They asked him a question and he just froze for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And this was the second incident of this happening to him. Like, the fact that these term limits don't exist or whatever they are, that shit got to change. These dudes are dead senile up there, or like as we saw with Trump, Biden, whatever. And then there's these guys that are literally medically not fit to be doing this. And so more than likely, I do think that guy, that the person I'm talking about, I do think that person will step down because of health conditions. And you can't keep having this happen. But the same thing with Biden, right? How many times is this dude gonna fall or like misquote stuff, trip on words, like whatever it is? I would be much more interested to see if he steps down and then there be like this pool of the Democratic debate opens, right? Who would be on the ticket for blue? The thing for red is just entertainment at this point, right? They're just selling tickets to these shows and getting viewers on the TV, getting clips on social media, and it just sells for a good story. It stirs up hate, right? Like, oh, now people like and dislike this candidate. What about this candidate? And that'll come down to like 3 people. Even though there's like 9 people up there, you don't care about all of them. Even though all of them spoke, it doesn't matter. I do think it was pretty impressive that you see this many colored people up there as Republican candidates, because what you kind of see through social media and just the world in general is that the Republican Party is much more, how do I put it, white. And then you see a lot more people of color being more on the Democratic side. This shit just hurts my head, honestly. Like, I can't keep up with any of it. I don't know. Like, please tell me, text me, comment it. Hey, like, how do you keep up with this? I get it. We read news articles, but how much of it is just social media? And on that social media note, like, we're going to talk about that a lot more in a couple of seconds, because the shit is powerful. This shit is literally just the news nowadays, right? It can be steered one way, it can be fed multiple ways. The power of social media just influences so much of this. Like, who am I voting for? Did you read any articles or have you kept up with this person? Did you actually look into them? Probably not. But on my Instagram feed, I see everyone hates this dude, so I'm probably going to vote for this dude. And I know you're like, oh, that's like, that's stupid. That person's dumb. No, it's probably a lot of the smartest people out there that are doing this. And probably even more smarter people that aren't even voting at all. Like, I am all for like a Mark Cuban, a quote unquote, like what I like to call an intellect, right? A person that is smart. I don't care whether they're a politician, a businessman, they've made millions. It's just these people that I consider smart. I understand that's an opinion of mine. Mark Cuban, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name again, something Yang, Andrew Yang. But I don't think these guys will ever run, because you put a smart person into a shitty system, then that smart person is damn near neutralized. Or let's say, not even a smart person, a quote unquote good person, like how we kind of saw with Obama. I didn't really know much about his politics, but through all his stuff, I thought, hey, you know what? I think this guy's a good person. I think he cares. I think he has these intentions. But anything he was able to get through didn't really do much. And his term is looked at kind of frowned upon. But even like, what we don't get to see is the things that he wanted to get through that never passed bills. Like, it didn't get past the House, past the Senate, whatever. And so if you put someone, let's say Mark Cuban, I'm going to use Mark Cuban as my example. If you put him into the office and he has all these amazing ideas, hey, I want to end big pharma, something that he is currently working on, and he tries to do that in the White House, how far is that going to get? versus is if he just operates by himself, which is what he's currently doing, and how much of an impact will that make? So are these intellects or good people, quote unquote, more effective outside of office than in office? And then we know, are we ever gonna see like a wave of intellect slash good person get into the office? Or is it just always going to be this pool of people we always have this little dislike for? That's pretty depressing. So I'm going to take a break on that. I'd like to talk about the stuff I've been watching on TV. And just like I said last week, that I really wanted to talk about this Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp trial. If you haven't seen the I guess the recap of the case on Netflix, definitely go check it out. It was much like I wasn't someone that kept up with it when it was happening. I saw clips on social media, but I never really understood the full breadth of it all. I knew it was a big deal. I didn't think it was like OJ level big. Um, but I think now with social media being how it is, it got to that size. I still think the OJ case is bigger, but anyways. So I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about it. It's not like there's spoilers because all of this shit already happened. But if you haven't seen it, please go see it. And here are my thoughts on it. Like, the verdict that came out was that. So sorry, let me rewind. Tripping over words a little bit here. Basically, what happened is in an article a long time ago, Amber Heard was like, "Hey, I am a victim of domestic abuse." Her partner being Johnny Depp, who is probably the biggest actor in the world at the moment. He was doing Pirates of the Caribbean, which he was mainly known for, and then probably other projects that I can't name off the top of my head, but an amazing actor, right? And then he kind of gets shut out because it's like, oh, well, this dude's abusing his wife. We can't be casting this guy. It's a bad look. We don't agree with it, all of that stuff. So then the point of this trial was to clear his name, to say, hey, everything she was saying was fabricated, false. I deserve this much in dollars for, like how much I lost because I wasn't working. And now my name is clear. I can continue working, maybe getting a role in a future movie project, whatever it is. And the outcome of the case was, should I say the outcome first? No, let's talk about it a little bit. Basically, it came down to two things for me. One, in the court, life is acting, right? Life is acting. No matter where you are, you're portraying something. Whether you're sad, whether you're angry, whether you're happy, you're always portraying something. And in that court, she was supposed to portray that this dude abuses me. This dude abuses me. Everything I said was not false. And that's it. That's all she had to do. And every single time you see her talk, whether it was on the documentary, and I even remember this from the social media clips, but it just felt so forced. And people were like, oh, she's an actor. She's acting. And it's like, yeah, but it's just not good. You're always, quote unquote, acting, especially when you're in front of a jury. You want to portray those emotions. You want to let them know what happened. You want to convince them that this dude abused me. And it just wasn't convincible. She would be crying. She would be staring at them while talking the whole time. The person that would ask the questions over here, and then she would address these people over here. If you're just listening to this audibly, I'm saying that the person that asked me a question is in front of me, and I'm over here looking to the right, talking to the jury as if they asked me the question. What are you doing? As a jury, I'm gonna be like, hey man, this direct eye contact. If you tell me anything and you are staring into my eyes, I'm gonna be like, oh, this fool's lying. Why is this so intimate? Stop looking at me like this. Answer the question to the person that's asking you the question. So one, I think it just came down to her acting. Two, her legal team, in my opinion, was shit. That is with my 0 years of law experience and probably 5+ years of watching Suits. That is my opinion on her legal team. And it's very unfortunate because do I agree with what happened, right? Do I agree that, oh, no, he was not abusing her? I don't. I do think, I don't, sorry. I think that there were cases of him breaking shit, doing all that stuff around her, which is quote unquote abuse. And I didn't know that necessarily. Do I think he was physically abusing her? Not as much. Sorry, not as much. I don't think at all. They talked about, I think it was like one of the last things they mentioned in the documentary was that he kicked her in the back on the plane and like the texts were hidden. And then they find out that the texts were doctored. And it's like, okay, so maybe he didn't abuse her at all. Or sorry, maybe he didn't physically abuse her at all. But still, by the definition of abuse, is that if I'm breaking shit around you in a mad manner, kind of showing you force and violence, even though it's around you and it's not to you, that is abuse. So do I think that was happening? I do. Do I think Johnny Depp's legal team absolutely destroyed her and her character? 100%. Look at how many people, whether it was on social media or in conversation like this, is like, oh, that bitch is crazy. Oh, that bitch is crazy. She might be, but look at how, like, I didn't know her at all before the case. I knew her from Aquaman as the super attractive redhead. I did not know her. I did not know anything about her character. And his legal team absolutely destroyed her. They said she shat next to the bed, bro. Bro, have you ever been so angry at your significant other that you have thought, you know what, I'm gonna shit on his bed or next to his bed? And they made it believable. Everyone said, "Oh shit, she's shitting on people's bed." She literally did that to him. It was like, bro, first of all, Johnny Depp wasn't home. No matter how angry you are at your significant other, you wouldn't do that. You might go take their toothbrush and do some nasty shit and then leave the person, but you're talking about shitting on the floor and you and your friends are still in the house. If I was with one of my bros and he was like, "Hey, blah blah blah, it's pissing me off. I'm gonna take a shit right here." I'd be like, "Hey, wait, what?" You have to then sit there with the smell and all the stuff that comes with it. That's disgusting, bro. I do think it was their dog or whatever pet it was that was sick also that did that. But his legal team made it sound like it was her. And that is the point of, like trial, right? How do I destroy this person's character and make it sound like she is an impulsive liar about everything she's ever said? And that's what came across, right? Oh, this person, what? She's crazy. She is defecating on her partner's bed. Oh, like my trust for her drops. And then what else did they do to kind of like destroy her character? Oh, taking pictures. They showed that she was taking pictures of him when he was messed up, whether it was on drugs, nodding off alcohol. I can't remember all the vices, but they showed like, oh, you're taking pictures of him to embarrass him. Like a person just can't nap. Now, look, I've taken pictures of a lot of friends when they've been messed up to give them some jokes in the morning and to laugh, whether they're asleep on the couch, sitting up, whether they're laying on the floor, on the toilet. I've taken pictures of it all. But if I was with my partner and this person was absolutely abusing drugs and I couldn't get through to them, then yes, I would take pictures of them to show not people out in the world, right? But to show my partner in the morning, like, yo, bro, look, this is how messed up you were. Like, how do we address this going forward? But it didn't sound like that. It sounded like, oh, you're doing this to embarrass him. You're just such a low character. Once again, your trust for her drops some more. And then, I said a little ago that her legal team just was shit. The fact that, like his legal team was able to get ahead of the drug conversation. The fact that Johnny Depp was doing whatever. I don't know the specific names, or I can't remember that at the moment, but he had a substance abuse problem. And the issue is when he says it, right? The first thing you feel is some type of sympathy, maybe empathy. You feel bad for the person versus if she was able to get ahead, her legal team was able to get ahead of it, then you start feeling like, oh, wow, this dude does have a problem. I can see how he was abusing her. They didn't do that. And then, we all saw the clips of her lawyer that tried to make the whole TMZ comment, and she got shut down. She was this massive clip that went super viral on TikTok for getting embarrassed. And then the other incident of, what was it? I have it written down here. The donations. The donations, like his legal team made it sound like the word pledge, and actually, so what was it? I have pledged to donate, let's say $2 million to this organization. Or if I say I have donated $2 million to this organization, they made it sound like she was a liar about that because she said the word pledge and didn't say donate. And then she said, and this is where she kind of messed up, where she said, I use the terms interchangeably. And that's where it's like, my trust for you has already dropped. So if you say that you are using those terms differently, and this lawyer that is questioning you is saying, no, those terms mean two different things, you're going to go with the lawyer. And in the documentary, they did such a good, they did a good job at basically saying like, look at all these articles where they have been used interchangeably. Here are the records of her donating that money. But that stuff doesn't happen in court, right? That is all things that are gathered after the case to be looked at when it's all done. And it's just like, damn, once again, if you're on that jury, everything drops. Do I think it was a big part that there was this massive, his fan base damn near quadruples, quintuples? I don't know. His amount of fans absolutely destroys the number of fans that she has. More so, there a lot of people that were supporting her weren't even fans of Amber Heard, but they were just victims of domestic abuse that wanted to stand behind her. Completely understandable. And then the factor of social media, where all of this is nationally televised. This is something that probably should not have been on TV because, once again, it just destroys her character even more publicly than it needed to, whatever. And now, I didn't know this. I thought, and maybe I got this is my information from New Girl, but when someone's on a jury, I thought they had to like stay at a secluded hotel and everything's paid for, but like they're kind of cut off from the world. I know that they have to swear in and say, um, yeah, I won't look at anything about this case. I won't read about this case. I won't look up any, like I will stay away from everything about this case until after this case is done. All of my information about this case will come from this courtroom, and that is all I will judge on. But there's no way that is true. There's no way that the folks that went home at night didn't hear anything about this. Now, I'm not trying to throw the jury under the bus, but how can you not, right? Like, and do I think that played a factor? Probably. Do I think it would have led to a different outcome? Not really. Because it came down to one, she looked horrible in court, and those are the facts that you had. Now you kind of pile on what you hear on social media, and you're not getting out of that rut, right? You're not going to make that turn and be like, you know what, he was being abusive to her, and we should stand by her side. Overall, my thoughts on the case is like that shit was a messy relationship from the start, all the way through. I don't even know how they went around in that timeline, how they lasted so long. It should have probably never been televised. I think he was being abusive. I think she was also probably hitting him, and he was trying to break free, but he was with her. overall, it was just entertainment at the end of the day for me. Very shitty. Do I think it pushed back any type of Me Too movement or anything like that? Personally, I don't think so. I can see how it is argued that, oh, like this set back all future victims of domestic or all current victims of domestic abuse, and they won't ever come out and say their story because this is what they think will happen to them. I can understand that. And that is also why I don't think a case like this should have been publicly portrayed like this. Like it was an episodic TV show that I'm tuning into every day to see what the outcome is. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just teetering and just saying the right things. But please, let me know your thoughts. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. They end up kind of settling for, I think the outcome of the case was she owed him 15 million, and then afterwards it says at the end of the documentary that they settled on just like a 1 million payout, because I think the more important thing was that he gets to keep his that he gets to clear his name. So now we'll probably see him in a future movie project. I think we already saw him like in some Dior commercials or some other cologne commercial. But yeah, a good watch overall. Let me know what you think. And sorry if I went on too long for that. What do I have coming up this week? You know, Labor Day weekend. No plans really, just at home chilling. I do have a comedy show on September 8th at Fourth Wall Street Comedy, and I'll probably put some stuff on my story. I'll even link it in the show notes for this episode. So if you're in the LA area, please come through. It'll be a fun time. And other than that, like, what do we have next week for you? I'll probably talk about how expensive LA is. Talk about how expensive LA is and how I'm so damn annoyed of tipping, or how it is expected that you're supposed to tip everywhere you go. With that being said, I always appreciate the time from you guys. Please let me know, like what you're gravitating towards, what you don't like, personal stories, non-personal stories, what's going on in the news, TV, movies, whatever it is. It helps me kind of steer what we're talking about week to week. So just talk to me. And once again, with that being said, thank y'all so much and see you next week.